Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Journeys to Belonging with me, Dr. Ilene Winokur. I am speaking about my One Word 2023 again this week, but a little bit more in depth about why I chose this word, which is bittersweet. I'm going to quote from Susan Cain's book about bittersweet. And she says the ability to accept difficult emotions, not just observe them, not just breathe through them, but actually non judgmentally accept them, has been linked to repeatedly to long-term thriving. And again, this is an excerpt from Bittersweet by Susan Cain. And so I am sharing this and sharing about my one word because I think it's really, really important. Susan Cain has done a lot of research, 25 years of research about emotions and about the sort of intersection of bitter and sweet, poignancy, and those big emotions that we feel at major transitions during our lives. I realized as I read through her book and listened to her speak on Brene Brown's broadcast about Atlas of the Heart that I have experienced bittersweet, or bittersweetness, bitter and sweet, sometimes at the same time, sometimes at entirely different times. And in order for me to be able to thrive, as Susan Cain says in the quote, I had to really understand, step back, and look at difficult periods of my life or difficult things that happened in my life and face them before I was able to really be grateful for having those parts of my life and then move on to the feeling of the sweetness, which is the gratitude, the appreciation, and opening up my eyes to the possibilities that the event that happened or the things that happened around that event, I am able to cope with. And also that they bring back either memories, uh, reflections, and so forth. And I think I probably need to give you an example so that you could understand a little bit better what I'm talking about and perhaps be able to connect with it in a different way. So I have always cried at graduations. My kids laugh about it. Not laugh at me, but they're sort of amused at the fact that they know that if I'm at a graduation, mostly theirs. I have three children. For those of you who know me, um, I have three children, two sons and a daughter, and they're in their 30s now. But when they graduated from high school and college, I cried. And I would explain to them that the reason why I cry at their graduations is because I know that it is a life transition, a huge life transition. And not just for them, because of course they grew up in Kuwait and they were going to university in the United States. But even for those of you who have children who end up going to the hometown university after high school, you know that life with them is never the same. They grow up, they're adults. Your relationships change with them, it's inevitable. And so, not so much sad tears, but actually, yes, a little bit sad and a little bit happy for me and for my kids. And even for others, when I go to their graduations, as soon as they start playing Pomp and Circumstance, I can feel the tears coming to my eyes. And what does that mean? It means that I need to view that transition or that event as something that, like I said, is inevitable, but has sweetness to it, has happiness attached to it. But that I can experience the sadness that even thinking about it, I start getting teary eyed. That the sadness of the fact that my kids will not be in my house, or even if they're in my house, my expectations are that I'm not the one responsible solely for them, that they're out on their own. And hopefully, all that I did for the first 18 years, 17, 18 years of their lives was sufficient for them to be able to cope. Of course, I'll be here, and I was here for them throughout the time that they were transitioning in going through college, going through university, going to the United States and living there. But I knew when they came back to visit that my relationship with them would be at a different level, that it wouldn't be the same as when they were living in my house. And I didn't expect them to come back the same people as when they left. I knew that they would have experiences that were going to open their eyes to different things that I couldn't expose them to, I couldn't teach them about anymore, and that they were going to mature. And I hoped they would. And I also realized that although I wanted to keep them forever 7 years old, 8 years old, 10 years old, however, whatever age, that I was excited to see the adults that they were going to become. And I've talked about my kids and how proud I am of them. But those emotions are just so overwhelming. I mean, when my son Barak left, he was the first to leave, he's the oldest. When he left, I would sit in his room, look around at his things, and initially I would get really sad, very sad about the fact that even though, my son and daughter, my other son and my daughter were still there, and I was very actively involved with the things that they were doing, but I missed him. But it was more than just missing him. I knew that it would be different when he came back to visit. So, the high school graduations are huge transitions, right? And I realized that I needed to be able to get past that feeling of I'm not able to cope with the fact that he's far away, and when he comes back, our relationship will be at an adult level and will be different. His expectations of our relationship would be different. But I also had to make sure that my other kids, were felt that they were just as important, and that they were still at home, and to appreciate that. And then when he did come back to visit, and each of them after they left and came back to visit, that I would embrace their growth and try to understand as best I could how I could support them in their further journey as they became adults and wandered out into the world. And so high school graduations were very difficult for me. College graduations were a little bit better because, of course, they were adults by then. I still cried. It was more happy tears than sad tears, but there was some sadness in there. And I also projected how much I was excited for them to be able to really start their journeys to adulthood. Although they've been working on it, all their lives, I had been helping them with it all their lives. But it was really important for me to be able to view it as not just my transition, but also my children's transitions. And as I'll talk about later on in other podcast episodes, it was also transitions of different kinds for each of my kids. I am sharing this because for those of you who have children, I even cried at their kindergarten graduations. So if your schools have kindergarten graduations, that was a big deal too. Um, I didn't cry as much as I did at high school graduations, but I did cry at their kindergarten graduations. For again, that transition from the sort of the babyish, um, not being able to handle things, and then thinking about the fact that they were going into elementary school or getting into more, unfortunately, more academics. Academics are really important, but the play is really important too. That's another topic entirely. But knowing that that was another life transition for them and for me, again, that their relationship with me would be slightly different. Certainly not the way it was when they graduated from high school. So that is one big transition. And again, Susan Cain's quote about handling those difficult emotions, because it is difficult. Again, whether they're a town away, a state away, across the country, in another country, still living in your home, but they're different, right? They're different. And we want them to be different because we want them to be able to take care of themselves as adults. I talk about the fact that I don't want them hanging onto my pants leg for the rest of their lives. I want them to, we as parents, this is our job, right? But when it happens, it's like, whoa, I'm not ready for this. In my next episode, I'm going to talk a bit about another life transition, which is retirement. And I'm sort of dividing them up because I think it's important for me to share how I coped with looking at those big emotions, feeling those, not just feeling those big emotions, looking at them, reflecting on them. And it didn't happen overnight. It took time. It's been a journey. I didn't realize that I was feeling that bittersweetness, and the fact that I'm able to look back and see now why I was feeling those emotions, and at the time to be able to look at them non-judgmentally, meaning that I wasn't judging myself for feeling that way, for feeling sad, or feeling happy. That in order to be able to feel the joy and the happiness of that time, I needed to be able to understand my feelings of sadness and why I was feeling sad about that transition. And so those tears at graduations during Pomp and Circumstance all have to do with the fact that I was realizing what a huge transition in my life as well as my children's lives it would be. And I think as I've been able to explain that to my children, they understand more. They still giggle a bit, and they'll tell their friends, if it's a graduation, my mom's going to cry. So thank you everybody for those who have subscribed to Journeys to Belonging, I am excited to share with you my stories about bittersweet and about my one word. There will be several more episodes about this particular topic. And then I want to start talking about bittersweetness of my experience as a nana, as a grandma. And so I hope you'll continue to join me on these episodes. The podcast is available on most major platforms and now even on Amazon Music. So please join me. Please drop me a note on social media at Ilene Winokur on all of them, and let me know if you've listened to an episode, if anything resonated with you. I'd love to hear your stories, not necessarily just about graduation, but your stories about bittersweetness and the bitter and the sweet. So, feel free to share. And if you need help getting through those transitions, please let me know. Take care, and I'll be sharing about bittersweetness next time.